All right, let us begin part 3 of our chapter 5 vocabulary terms. Of course, you can see in the background the pros and cons of big business. We ended part 2 with those, so let us move on to our next video, part 3. And here is the first slide of the part 3. We're looking at these four on this particular page. And so the Interstate Commerce Act of, hold on. Yay. That's kind of annoying. Anyway, the Interstate Commerce Act of 1877. This is a federal law passed by the federal government. It prohibited unfair practices by railroads, such as charging higher rates for shorter routes. Now, what had occurred prior to this is that I, as a big farmer, would do business with your railroad company, and since I was a big farmer, I grew a lot of wheat, and I would ship tons and tons of the wheat, and so you would give me a better rate. My neighbor next door is a much smaller farmer. He has far less land than I do, and so he grows less, and when you ship his wheat, he ships his wheat on your railroad, you charge him more. So those unfair practices that's annoying too. Those unfair practices by the railroads meant that they would charge higher or lower rates for shorter or longer routes based on whim. Because I did a lot of business with them, they gave me better rates. Because I would ship longer distances, they would give me a better rate. And the idea behind the Interstate Commerce Act was to ensure that the railroads would charge a fair and equitable rate to all, not give certain customers an unfair advantage. Now, in order to ensure that the Interstate Commerce Act was adequately enforced, the Interstate Commerce Commission was created. So the Interstate Commerce Commission was created. The Interstate Commerce Commission was created as a result of the passage of the Interstate Commerce Act. It was designed to enforce the Interstate Commerce Act. It was the first time Congress had tried to regulate business in America. So for the first time ever, the federal government passed a law, and it was trying to control businesses here in America. Our next one, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and there's the year 1890. Again, keep in mind the Interstate Commerce Act was passed in 1887. The Sherman Antitrust Act in 1890. We are in the middle of what we still refer to as the Gilded Age. And what we see is some pushback, some attempt to break the cycle of corruption by the federal government. Anyway, getting back to our third one here, the Sherman Antitrust Act. This law was designed to stop monopolies from engaging in unfair practices that prevented unfair competition. What is the definition of a monopoly? Well, a monopoly is a business that controls a supermajority of that particular field. Standard Oil, J.D. Rockefeller's company, controlled upwards of 90% or more of all oil and oil production in America. That's a monopoly. Monopolies are bad. They kill competition. And what is the key to a successful economic system in America? What is the key to capitalism? Well, it's competition. If there is no competition, and monopolies kill competition, if there is no competition, then companies are less likely to produce high-quality goods at a reasonable price. I've given you this example before. If you own the only hamburger joint in town, you can provide any quality of burger you want at any price you want, and people will pay it as long as they want to eat a hamburger. Competition is the key. So the Sherman Antitrust Act was designed to eliminate those unfair practices which can be found in monopolies. And those monopolies destroyed competition. All right. Our last term on this particular slide, child labor. Anyone under the age of 16 who worked, could be defined as child labor. Now today we have a couple of additions to that. If you are under the age of 16 and you work for a family-owned business, that's okay. If you're under the age of 16 and you work in the fields, that's okay. But if you're 15, you are not allowed, again with those exceptions, you should not be allowed to get a job. Now again, sometimes it happens, it's not really supposed to. So the idea was to eliminate child labor. Why? Okay, well, number one, we don't want 13, 14, 15-year-olds working. And number two, the companies who would hire them would take advantage of the children by underpaying them. Why? Because they're kids, and working them long hours, often at extremely dangerous jobs. Because children tend to be smaller than adults, they could get in and around machinery that adults could not. Their fingers, their hands are smaller. They could reach in a little bit deeper into the machinery and unclog it. Because children are smaller than adults, they could work in the mines a little bit more easily, move around the mines. Again, mines are not usually built. These caverns in the mines are not carved out with 6'5", 300-pound linemen in mine. So they're very small. Children can move in and out of them much more easily, much more quickly. And so they often were given these jobs, dangerous jobs, and a lot of them either were injured or died on the job as a result of it. So the idea behind passing child labor laws was to protect children from those types of environments. Let's move on to our next slide. As we're doing that, this is going to be a relatively short presentation, 15 or so minutes. We'll probably do about 3 slides, and we'll have one more and finish it up. But let's go to our next one. Unions. We have talked about unions already. We have a couple of the unions that we have discussed already mentioned, and there's the term for union. We've already talked about the Knights of Labor a little bit and the American Federation of Labor, the AFL. But let's look at these as we have them here. A union is a group of people, okay, who work at the same type of labor and who band together in order to receive better benefits, okay, like pay, better working conditions, and other benefits that are not mentioned at this time. So, group of people working together, same type of labor. Bricklayers, carpenters, electricians, they have labor unions. They share the same kind of work. They unionize, they band together because collectively 100 people have more power asking for a pay raise than one person. So unionizing people allows them to band together to give them, the unionized people, more leverage when they go talk to the bosses about whether it is better pay, better work conditions, or other benefits like a 40-hour week, paid holidays, sick leave, whatever the case may be. So unions, the idea, nothing new. I mean, unions have been around for a long, long, long time, but they really kind of caught here in America in the late 1800s and through the early 1900s, through efforts of the Knights of Labor, the American Federation of Labor, and others. Okay, that is what a union is. A strike is a type of protest that unions use against employers. If our union doesn't like the pay and we are trying to get a pay increase from our employer, one of the things that we may do as a form of protest is strike. And what a strike is, the definition: workers stop working in order to get their point across to management. And so we're all at work, and at a given time, and at this moment it's about 10:30 when I'm making this. So at 10:30, we all stop what we're doing, walk outside. Everybody in the union, in the plant, in the company in the business. We're all unionized. We're all in the same union. At 10:30, we all get up and walk outside. And we stay out there for an hour. So while we're out on strike, nothing is happening. Nothing is being produced. This is one way. Again, this is just one type of protest. There are lots of them. But this is one type of protest that were used by unions against employers. We, the unionized workers, would stop working to send a message to the management. Our next one, Knights of Labor, 1869. They hope to create a single nationwide union by uniting skilled and unskilled workers. An unskilled worker, by definition, is someone who has really no training or there's no skill involved. And without being overly rude to you, you are all unskilled laborers. You are undereducated and unskilled. And that's one of the reasons why you're in high school and why you go to college, is to gain those skills and that education. But a doctor, a doctor is a skilled laborer. A guy who drives the truck that collects the garbage, they're probably unskilled. A guy who sacks groceries at H-E-B, unskilled. You're a lawyer, skilled. So the Knights of Labor were hoping to unite these two widely different groups. And by the way, it's not going to work. I mean, skilled workers are not going to want to be associated with the unskilled. So there were built-in prejudices in the two groups. The skilled laborers looked down upon the unskilled, and the unskilled felt that the skilled laborers were jerks. But it was an attempt to create this nationwide union, uniting those two groups, uniting skilled and unskilled. Let me clean this up a little bit. Uniting skilled and unskilled labor to work toward a common goal. It didn't work very well. Terence Powderly was the leader of the Knights of Labor in the 1880s. Unfortunately, due to some things we're going to talk about, the Haymarket Square riot, the Knights of Labor had some issues, and they eventually folded and went away. This is mentioned in the John Green video I showed you a week or so ago. The idea was a good idea. Unite these two groups. It just didn't work out very well at that time. Our last one on this page, the American Federation of Labor, the AFL, was founded in 1881. This is a few years, about 12 years after the Knights of Labor. And it hoped to form a single powerful union by uniting workers with similar economic interests. The AFL is still alive to this day. It has been merged with the CIO, and so you have the AFL-CIO. But it was more focusing on workers who shared more similarities than the group of people that the Knights of Labor were attempting to unite. All right, let's move on to our next slide. Will be our last slide for this video. Here we are looking at Samuel Gompers, who is the gentleman who started the AFL. We had Terence Powderly mentioned, who started the Knights of Labor. Okay, let's go back real quickly and take a look at that screen. Okay, we already talked about the Knights of Labor and Terence Powderly. Powderly is the guy who started the Knights of Labor. Okay, and now we're looking at the Samuel Gompers, who started the AFL. Okay, again, it's really that simple. That's the definition. Gompers was far more successful than Powderly, but Gompers is the guy who started the AFL. These two terms, closed shop and open shop, go together. A closed shop is a place where only union workers can be hired. If you live in a state that is referred to as right to work, if you live in a state, yes, that is right to work, there is no such thing as a closed shop. Texas is a right to work state. Most of the southern states and the Midwestern states, excuse me, where there is not really heavy industry, we are called right to work states, which means you do not have to be a union employee. Those are what we call the open shops, okay? So, open shops, these are places where one did not have to belong to a union to be hired. A closed shop, you had to be a union worker. Only union workers could be hired in a closed shop. So in New York, which is a heavily unionized state, in order to get a job in almost any field, you must be a union worker. I want to build a building in New York. I must go to companies that use union labor. They will only use union labor. That is a closed shop. Only union workers can be hired. Open shop, you do not have to be a union member to work. Texas is a right to work state. You do not have to be a union worker. If I'm building a building, I want to build a 40-story building here in Edinburgh, and I go out and hire plumbers, electricians, and painters, and blah, 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 they do not have to be union members. I build that same building in California, they must all be union members. Closed shop, open shop. Our final one for today is the Haymarket Square Affair, 1886. I mentioned this a little bit earlier with the Knights of Labor. A bomb exploded. Okay, there was a bomb that exploded during a demonstration of striking workers at the Haymarket Square in Chicago. So there is a strike. A bomb goes off. 7 policemen are killed and 67 people are wounded as a result of the bomb. As you can well imagine, the police are enraged. As the protest continues, they fire into the crowd. There are more people killed. A truly tragic, terrible event. The key to this, however, is that it was Terrence Powderly and his union that's blamed. Okay, it was Terrence Powderly and, let me clean this up a little bit, the Knights of Labor. That's supposed to be an L. And that's not really helping, is it? Okay. Let's try this again. Let's do this one. Yeah, there we go. That's better. The Knights of Labor, okay, which was Terrence Powderly's union, they were blamed for the bomb. Now, whether they actually exploded the bomb or not, I have no idea. Was anyone associated with the Knights of Labor responsible for the bomb? I have no idea. No one really knows. But they were blamed because they're the ones who were striking. And so when the bomb went off, killing these policemen, the police retaliated as the strike continued. More violence, police fired into the crowd, killing and wounding more people. And then all of this violence associated with the Haymarket Square, all that violence is associated with the Knights of Labor. Within a few years, the Knights of Labor is dead. It's gone. It ceases to be alive. So the Knights of Labor, and this is all mentioned in the John Green video I showed you. The Knights of Labor go from several 100,000 employees, members, to none within a relatively short period of time. Why? Because of the violence associated with the Haymarket Square. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop it. This has been the third part 3 of our vocabulary terms. And we'll finish up with the fourth part soon.